Okay folks, I'd like to talk to you about a game that has been one of my favorites ever since it came out. That is Small World from Days of Wonder. Now I know I've given a little bit of a spoiler there because I really do enjoy this game. But let's go through the box, see what you get, see how it plays. Now, as you open the box of Small World, you'll find out immediately how much thought they put into producing this game. Of course, you get the rule book, and as we go through the rule book, you'll see that it does have, it's a color rule book, and it's a good size font, so it's easy to read. It's got a lot of pictures, a lot of explanations on rules, that type of thing. One thing that I did want to touch on though is the appendices, or the appendices. It gives a detailed description of what each race does and what each special ability does. That is in addition to what is found here on the player aids, and you'll have 6 player aids. It's one for each character as they go up in style. But on the front, you have the game turn. It has explanation, very brief explanation of what a player can do on their turn. But if you turn it over, it also has a listing of what each race does and what each special power does as well. And each person has this in their hand all the way through the game. Also gives different terrain types there as well. So this player aid is probably one of the better player aids. It is sizable, it's big, but it's one of the better player aids that I've seen from a game. In addition to those two things, you're going to get not one, but 2 double-sided maps. And the reason that is that we have a special player board for 2 players. If we turn that over, this is for 3 players. Then you have a larger board that is for 5 players and 4 players. Okay, so they put a lot of thought into different configurations, different region configurations for 2, 3, 4, and 5 players. Inside the box, you'll have these differing parts of the board. You have these guys here, which are the special powers that will be coupled with the different races as they go through. And they are shaped in such a way that they fit in to the side there. So it's really neat how they've done that. I mean, of course, it doesn't stay there, but it just kind of locks in there. Not really locked, but it just kind of fits in there so that it's good aesthetics, basically, is what I'm trying to say. You also are going to have these race tokens, and each race has usually a special ability and then a pictorial representation of who they are. This is the expansion die that comes in. It has basically 3 faces on it. It has one with 1 square, one with 2 squares, and one with 3 squares. And basically this is a reinforcement die. At the end of your turn, if you have like 1 token left from your race and you don't really have enough to take over any other region, you can place your token in a region, roll this die, and maybe you'll get enough reinforcements to do that. Then it gives you a bunch of mountain hex or mountain region tiles. And then here we have fortifications, bivouacs, and troll lair tokens. These are other tokens that some of the special powers will give you. The currency, 1s, 3s, 5s, and 10s. Then these are your actual race tokens that you'll use throughout the course of the game. They come in a... Now this tray has come under fire a lot because it's kind of easy to get those out, but the problem is that not all of the race and power bonus combinations will use all of your race tiles. So you'll take some out, but then you'll have to put some back, and sometimes they fall down and it gets really hard. You have to have almost sometimes a butter knife or something like that to pop them up out of there because your finger and your fingernail can't really get in there very well. At least mine can't. Maybe yours can. But anyway, these are the different race tokens that you'll be using throughout the game as well. And right now, I'd just like to stop and say that this is probably one of the better inserts that I've ever seen as well. Of course, nowadays they're coming out with inserts that are very good, and technology is allowing us to make vacuum sealed, vacuum, you know, whatever. I don't want to pretend to know everything I'm talking about, but there is a lot that comes in this box. You definitely will get your money's worth. Okay, here I have a 2-player version of Small World setup. Setup is actually very simple. Wherever there is a mountain region, you take one of the mountain range tiles and place it there. So you do that for all of these mountain range pieces. Also, you would take some of these indigenous peoples tokens, and wherever there is a target, yeah, a little bit of foreshadowing of what's actually going to happen here. You take a target. Everywhere there's a target, you place one of those indigenous peoples tiles that are already there. I usually just take the reinforcement token and put it in the center of the board where there is usually a lake, so that people can readily see where it is. And then 5 race placards and 5 power placards are turned over and randomly thrown together. And this is where some of the fun of the game actually happens. It's a very silly theme. It's a very fun theme. So you can't really take it very seriously. It's just a game that is meant to have fun and interact with one another. I mean, think about it. Alchemist elves, well, I guess that could kind of work. Diplomat trolls, probably not so often. Pillaging ghouls. Why are ghouls worried about pillaging things and for money and that type of thing? Doesn't make sense. Fortified halflings, really? It's almost contradictory. But again, that's part of the fun, part of the silliness of the theme that you can just kind of have fun with. Lastly, before the game begins, you would take the round marker, place it on the number 1, and that will help you keep track of the different rounds as we progress through the game. Now we're ready to start. Each player starts with 5 tokens, 5 currency, and the currency is your points at the end of the game. The reason that you start with currency is because you may want to choose one of the higher up races. If you do, you can get this one for free. This one will cost you 1, and that 1 would be placed on that bottom 1. And then you could take the diplomatic trolls. If you didn't want the elves or the trolls, you could put 1 each on both of those and then take the mounted wizards, and so forth and so on. So you start with the ability to go all the way up and take the top of the draw pile if you would like to. So let's say I want to save my money, and which is actually points. You are paying points to get these higher up ones. So I want to save these and just take the alchemist elves. So I would go over here to the tray and I would take my alchemist elves. How many do you get? Well, you add these 2 numbers together, the 6 from the elves race token and the 4 from the alchemist power token, and you would get 10. So I take my 10 elves out of the tray, and now I'm ready to begin conquering lands. Now, in order to conquer a land, I have to come in from the board edge. It does not have to be my edge. It can be any of the edges, but you have to place a number of race tokens equal to 2 at base. And then for every token that is already in that region, you add 1. So in order to go here and conquer this region, I would simply have to place 2. But to go here, I would have to place 3. And to go here, I would also have to place 3 because it has 1 token in it already. So I could go here, and he's conquered. Then I could go here, and that is conquered with 3. So that's 2, 3, and 3, and I have 2 left. So now I could go here, or I could go here. If I go here, no problem. It just takes 2, no problem. Let's say I want to go here, though. It takes 2 plus 1, and I only have 2. So I could place my 2 guys there and roll the die. No reinforcements came, so I am not successful in that battle. I take my 2 leftover guys and place them wherever I would like. Now, I would get more tokens based on how many regions I have. So right now it would be 1, 2, and 3. But then I also get this special power, the Alchemist. I get +2 gold every turn I have elves on the board. So I would get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I would just grab a 5 from the tray, add it to my pool, and now it's the other player's turn. So then I come over here and we're going to replace the elves merchant tritons and then underworld dwarves. Well, that's incredibly thematic, but I am thinking that probably pillaging ghouls will be more fun for me. So I'm going to take 1, 2. I'm going to take the pillaging ghouls and make them my own. My precious. So I grab my 10 ghouls out of the tray. Now, pillaging means that every time I knock out a token, I'm going to get +1 there. So I'm going to be looking for places that have things in them already. So I'm probably going to come in this board edge here. Still have to follow the same rules. 3, 3, 3. Then I'm going to try to go here. I have to roll 2, but you never know. Oh, I only rolled a 1. So this doesn't occur. I'm just going to put them right there. Okay. Now at this point, I do have the ability to redistribute my troops however I see fit. So for example, I could take 1 more from here and leave it on here since people are going to have to come in the board edge. And I think I'll stay right there. All right, so these 3 regions all had people in them. So I'm going to get +1 for each of those regions. So each of these actually counts 2 for me. So 2, 4, and 6. So I come over here, I grab a 1 and a 5, and that's the end of my turn. These are removed from the board. And that's the end of round 1. So we come back to first player. First player can now take all but 1. Now, you can take more than 1, but by taking everything out of a region, you are surrendering that region. Usually not a good idea. Sometimes it would be. It depends on the race that you're using or maybe the special power that you're using. Okay, so now I'm going to take my troops and I'm going to, now that I know that he has the pillaging ghouls, I want to take these away from him and make it harder for him to get some of these regions. And then I have a 1. Let's try to go there. Well, I rolled a 2. So that succeeds. At the end of my turn, I'm going to spread out a little bit so that we're okay. I think I'm going to go up here hard because the ghouls are right next to me. So that's good. All right, so I count how many regions I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus my 2. That's 8. And now it's the next player's turn. The ghouls do the same. Now, I can, come up this way and continue conquering, or I can try to take over some of these and interact with the player as they are spreading out. I can try to hamper that if I can. Both of these would be kind of difficult because I would have to take and place 4 here and 5 here. So if I take 4, you can see that's over half my troops, and 5 is even worse. But up here I can do 2. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. 2 here. This would be 3. And then I have 2 more. Let's go for the mountains right here. And that is a failure. So we'll take and place these guys back here. Take this guy, place him back there. And then we count up. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I get +1 because of pillaging, 6. Then it comes back to player 1's turn. And player 1, you know, is, well, the elves were good while they lasted, but quite frankly, I think they're pretty close to the end of their reign. So we're going to choose to go into decline. Decline is simply removing your race from the board and flipping it over. When you put your race into decline, that is the only thing you can do on your turn. And you get the points that are still available to you. And then you flip your race over like so to show that you are in decline. As you can see, my alchemist ability went away. Some abilities stay while you're in decline, but alchemist was not one of them. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I get 6 tokens. The next turn, I'm going to be able to choose a new race token and special ability. Okay, so that's all I was able to do on my turn. I get a 5 and a 1, and now it's the ghouls' turn again. The ghouls have a pretty special ability here. When they go into decline, that's what this symbol means here, none of them are actually removed from the board. So when he goes into decline, both of them stay. Neither of them are removed. So they're more difficult to remove in decline than other races. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now when it comes back to the elves' turn, the elves are in decline, so now the person can choose from one of the races that are left. Let's say he chooses Diplomat Trolls. He doesn't have to pay anything for it, and there's one on there, so that's actually a point that he will get and add to his. He would then take the Trolls, 10 of them, and he would go through a turn similar to what the elves did, but of course he's not going to be attacking the elves because those are still his decline race. So the trolls will come on the board and conquer a number of regions, and then that number of regions that the trolls conquer will be added to the number of regions that the elves still inhabit to get the player total for that turn. And that total will be added to their point collection, and then it will go on to the ghouls' turn. They will do the same thing. We will continue doing that in a 2-player game all the way up to 10 rounds. And the person at the end of the 10th round that has the most points wins the game. So that is Small World in a nutshell. And I say in a nutshell because that is just the base game. There are several expansions that have been put out for Small World, including a way to make it 6-player, come up with a 6-player board. They've also made an expansion to set up the board the way you want it to be set up. And I'm not really all into that. As a matter of fact, 6-player is that's a pretty long game. And I don't really like how that it elongated the game like that. I would rather just stick with the base game and go with some of the smaller expansions that basically add more races and more power abilities. Just for example, one of the expansions brings in pixies, leprechauns, pygmies, homunculi, and barbarians, and then other race tokens, other special abilities like Barricade and Mercenaries and Imperial, which basically is helping you, giving you more rewards for having a large empire. And then Corruption. If somebody ever tries to attack you, they have to pay you money before that, or something to that effect. So there are expansions out there that add simply more race abilities and more powers. But there are other expansions that really kind of convolute the game a little bit. A standalone expansion called Underworld is there. And that's all well and good. I'm really more of a fan of the base game of Small World than all of the other stuff. I really want to say that if you are at all interested in, a fantasy, a light fantasy theme that has a lot of humor built into it, and you also like, kind of this head-to-head type interactivity between the players, I think Small World is definitely down your alley, and you should give it a serious nod. For me, I'm giving Small World 2 dwarven axes up. Let's say that. Yeah, there we go. And if you haven't checked out Small World, you should. See you on the flip side.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.